Inheritance occurs when one class incorporates the members of another class and the creation of that class. If we look at how the Java docs defines inheritance, we see the following definition. A class that is derived from another class is called a subclass, also a derived class, extended class, or child class. The class from which the subclass is derived is called a superclass, also a base class or a parent class. Jumping down to this sentence here, we can see that when you want to create a new class and there is already a class that includes some of the code that you want, you can derive your new class from the existing class. In doing this, you can reuse the fields and methods of the existing class without having to write and debug them yourself. Let's look at a couple general examples to get a better idea of what inheritance is. Let's say we have created a class called File. The File class will contain general file attributes like file name, file size, and date created. The class will also contain getter and setter methods for all these attributes. Now this is a good starting point or blueprint for a file that would be stored on a computer. But what if we wanted to create a class that is more tailored to a specific type of file? For instance, an audio file. We could use inheritance to create a subclass of the file class, and within this new class we could create new attributes like length, genre, and bitrate. Of course, the getter and setter methods would also be added to the audio class. Now keep in mind, by utilizing inheritance, the members of the file class will be accessible to any audio object, meaning the attributes file name, file size, and date created, along with the corresponding getter and setter methods for each of these attributes, will be able to be used by an instantiated audio object. This is possible without having to instantiate a file object. We could choose to create other classes that also inherit from the file class. For instance, we could create an image class with attributes such as dimensions and bit depth, or a video class with an attribute of frame rate, that each contain attributes that relate to that specific class while having access to all members of the file class. Here's an example of inheritance using people. In this example, all objects instantiated from the three child classes, student, teacher, and employee, will contain all the members of the parent class, person, and each will also contain the additional members created in each of the classes. For instance, the student class will also contain the attributes grade, GPA, and ID number, as well as the getter and setter methods for each of these attributes. And teacher will contain the attributes subject and education level, along with getter and setter methods for these attributes. The same will go for the employee class. Note that the child classes do not have access to the attributes or methods of each other. For example, the employee class will not have access to a grade attribute, and the teacher class will not have access to the employment type attribute, because these classes do not inherit from each other. The classes student, teacher, and employee only inherit from the person class. Also note that the person class does not have access to the attributes in any of the child classes. Parent classes do not inherit from child classes. Going back to the Java docs, we can see that every class except the object class has one and only one direct superclass. In the absence of any other explicit superclass, every class is implicitly a subclass of object. What that means is, even though we do not see it here, nor need to explicitly define an object class, both the file class and the person class inherit from a class called object. The object class is predefined in the Java programming language and is the backbone of any and all other classes. In defining other classes, such as the file class or the person class, we do not have to explicitly write code to inherit the object class. This is done behind the scenes. The last thing to point out in the Java docs is that classes can be derived from classes that are derived from classes that are derived from classes. As long as it makes logical sense, inheritance can occur to an infinite amount of levels. Looking here, we can see numerous levels of inheritance, with all classes being descendants of the object class. As we see here, classes near the bottom of the hierarchy provide more specialized behavior.